Hey everybody, this is Perch. Should heroes kill? Okay. Let me read this mail because it's an interesting topic, and I think the answer is actually pretty easy and pretty obvious. It depends on the hero, right? I mean, yeah, every hero is going to have different psychologies and different moral codes. You could argue, well, this makes this character more of a hero than this character. Yeah, I mean, that's totally fine, right? But the idea of do heroes kill, again, depends on the hero. Captain America and Cyclops have very different ideologies, and that's okay. But anyway, let's read this mail. It says, "Hey Perch, recently Tom Brevoort talked about how he wanted the X-Men to kill less while he was at the helm of the X books. I thought his logic on the X-Men specifically was sound, but it got me thinking about other characters who both DC and Marvel have had shift away from killing their foes. By the way, I mean, I don't agree with Tom Brevoort on much, and as he gets older and I get older, I find I agree with him on less and less all the time. And that's maybe a topic for another day. I should do a really salty video on people I dislike at some point. Just why not? No, actually, no. To resist that urge. Anyway, but in the later issues of the Krakoa era. Specifically when Jerry Duggan was writing it, I mean, he was having like Colossus just throw people into walls and turn them into bloody pulps, and Nightcrawler skewer people, and Kitty Pryde just just murder the shit out of people. And so I agree. I agree with Tom. Like I also would like to see the X-Men kill less. It's not the X-Men shouldn't kill, but once upon a time, Colossus snapped Riptide's neck. Was it Riptide? I think it was Riptide. Riptide's neck in the Mutant Massacre series, and he was broken up over it. It like bothered him. There's like a whole issue where he's haunted by this guy he killed, and it was against his code and everything else, and it was a big deal. And then fast forward to the Krakoa era, and again he's picking people up and just chucking them into Wolverine's claws and just murdering the shit out of people and laughing about it, making like cracking jokes. And so to me, it's like that's an example of, Colossus should have a moral code that's different from Wolverine's. They're very different. Now Wolverine run around just murdering the shit out of people. Yeah, that checks out. But Colossus, no. Heart of a poet, and also, paints the walls with the blood of his enemies. Anyway. Back to the mail. It says, the trope of heroes don't kill is a comic book staple. While I certainly don't think Batman or Spider-Man should kill their foes, I'm no Zack Snyder, I found myself drawn to characters who don't follow this trope. Two of the characters were Elektra and Red Hood. In the last couple of years, both of these characters have been relegated to typical non-killing roles, with Red Hood giving up using guns and Elektra being turned into a new Daredevil instead of an assassin. I don't think either one of the examples above were particularly in character, and I believe they had more interesting dynamics with other characters when they have differing methods to them. I agree. I personally dislike both these changes to the characters, and I'm left with a question of why. Why do you think DC and Marvel have moved these characters away from killing? Both these changes have happened as the characters have moved away from their role as antagonists, so it feels like Marvel and DC really do kind of believe that heroes shouldn't kill. Do you think this is justified, or is there some other reason I'm not seeing these changes? I greatly appreciate your thoughts on the subject. So I think that heroes don't kill. I agree with the general statement. If you're truly trying to be heroic, I think the line of great power comes great responsibility, or sometimes the doing the right thing isn't the easy thing, or tropes of statements like that I think are fair. There's a reason why you look up to Captain America, and Captain America is somebody who it's not because he's wrapped in the American flag. It's because his ideals should represent the best of us, should represent what it means to be a hero, what it means to sacrifice and put others before yourself, and and so on. I think the comics make sense when you have Captain America and Superman both representing this concept of, look, we're the moral code of our universe, and I think that's how comics should be. That's how the superhero genre should be. You need those characters who are inspirational leaders who do the right thing even when it's hard. But at the same time, you also need characters who are willing to, have a gray zone to that moral code. And then you have the dynamic, between them. You have the Punisher, you have Elektra, you have Wolverine, you have, to some extent, Batman. Batman doesn't kill, but he definitely takes, he'll torture and other things. You have Red Hood. You have, you have Damian, and kind of his moral code. And it's better when you have these things. You always had like Superman, who was, always going to save a life and would refuse to take one. You have Wonder Woman, who was raised as a warrior, who, does try and save lives, but, every now and then may snap some guy's neck with a rope. Just that was very out of character. But anyway, the difference between what Aquaman would do and what Green Arrow would do and what Green Lantern would do made for interesting dynamics of the characters. Now, I think that if you're going to have some heroes that kill, I think you have to do it very sparingly. And I think you have to create the dynamic between those characters and other heroes. The Daredevil Punisher dynamic or the Punisher Spider-Man dynamic should be one of conflict. Spider-Man should not like what Punisher is doing. Neither should Daredevil. They both should be very bothered by Frank Castle and how he conducts his business and his heroism, and they should reject it and at times try and stop him. And for what it's worth, what's interesting is in the 70s, the 80s, you would see this dynamic. Spider-Man, Daredevil would fight against the Punisher. Most of the time, the Punisher was off, murdering drug dealers and, his rogues gallery. So you didn't have the Punisher showing up to do a team up with Spider-Man to fight the Scorpion. And quite frankly, in the comics, when they did cross over, Spider-Man would say, like, I'm not teaming up with you, you psychopath. I mean, that was how the character was written. And that was the correct way to write the character. Same thing, when the Punisher showed up, you didn't throw him into a team. And in the 90s, that changed a little bit. They did start putting some of these, characters that were inappropriate for the team. You got, the Punisher teaming up with the Fantastic Four. And it's like, no, that doesn't, that he does not belong there. That's not how the character should be written. And so I think that the 90s definitely did blur a lot of this because we were really into the anti-hero. You had, a bunch of the heroes were suddenly got shoulder pads and spikes and guns and all this other shit going on because, Wolverine and the Punisher and Deadpool and characters like that became popular. And so, suddenly all the characters have to be that way. And they lost the kind of the interplay, the dynamic between the two. I think in more recent times, as they made Elektra the new Daredevil and, they've got Red Hood renouncing his guns, the writers are doing that because they're trying to set up this interesting wrinkle to the character of, can Elektra turn a new leaf? Can Red Hood, not work without guns? He's gone through a tough time now. Let's make him uncomfortable by him having to solve crime and fight and be a hero a different way. And how is he going to react to that and everything? These are the questions a writer are trying to answer. The problem with it is you get a couple comics like that, and you saw it with Elektra when she became the new Daredevil. She's like, now I can't murder people all over the place. So I'm a trained assassin. I'm having to hold back. And this the way to solve this Stiltman is just put a blade in his head and call it a day. But, she can't do it because now she's got to be an inspiration. She's got to wear that costume. And so it's making her uncomfortable. And that's kind of the whole fun of the comic and the interplay between them. But after you get done telling that story, after, 4 or 6 issues or so, you're left with a character who's just not themselves. And unless the writer kind of continues on with it, like, okay, now we're just gonna keep showing how the character is evolving, and maybe we're gonna put Elektra back into a scenario where she's meeting up with a bunch of assassins, but she no longer has the hard edge she used to have. So can she survive now that she's more inspirational, but in theory softer at what she does? I mean, you have to keep working those questions. Otherwise, you just kind of make the character generic. And I feel like that's a little bit of what's happened with several of these characters, like Elektra and like Red Hood, like Damian. Damian's personality went from being, he's a stone cold killer and he's going to continue to be a stone cold killer, into, now he's just kind of a dick. And he's He's just kind of an obnoxious, bratty kid. I mean, the characterization of Damien has changed so much from Grant Morrison writing it to kind of today's writers writing him. He's a lot less interesting of a character because I think they've neutered him and watered him down so much that, you know, all they're left with is kind of bratty kid as opposed to the interesting dynamic that Morrison originally set up. But that's my opinion. I think by and large, most heroes need to be heroes. If it's the Avengers, you really can't have, you know, a bunch of murderers on the team. Or if you do, you can have like one there, and then that character is always in some conflict with the others. But generally, you shouldn't do it. With the X-Men, you should also not have a lot of murderers on the team. You certainly shouldn't have characters that have been established for 40 years as peaceful, just straight up killing people and cackling about it. It's one thing if the character is like back against a wall and forced into drastic action. Colossus is he's got to kill somebody because there's it's the only way to save his friends, and he's going to be tortured by it. Versus he's making jokes. He suddenly has turned into murdering Spider-Man. Like that's just you're destroying your own characters that way. The key I'll leave with this is you spend decades building up a character's personality, and it's like putting money in the bank. The character becomes very defined, very, there's a lot of things you can do with them, but you've turned this character into a three-dimensional, rich, personality that you can do things with. And so when one day on a dime, you're like, and now they're going to start murdering everyone, or they're going to stop murdering people, and they're just going to be different. It's blowing tons of character work, and it makes the character ultimately a lot less valuable in the process. Anyway, what do you think of all this? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.
That big window went pop, and there was just glass everywhere. That was the loudest bang I had ever heard. It sounded like an explosion.
I thought perhaps the end of days was upon us, but it turned out it was just a disoriented old lady in a champagne-colored Toyota Avalon, crashing into my world like DMB circa 1996. Who's got their claws in you, my friend? Into your heart I'll beat again.